is the difference then that you see in the cultural expression of Christian faith between the UK and the United States?
Okay, that's a very interesting and difficult question. I think the orientation of the Christian must always be outward to the world, and particularly to the person who hasn't yet found that faith. We have this beautiful thing to share, and we can begin sharing it by serving our neighbors in all kinds of practical ways. So one of the problems that I perceive in Christian art, I think I perceive this more in America than in England, I'm not quite sure, but is that when artists find a place in the church, it always ends up being serving the church. It's like, you share our belief, we're comfortable with you, so you can make nice art that helps us to feel the faith we already think we know and understand, and isn't going to challenge us too much, and is just going to be a beautiful chorus for us to sing. Do you know what I mean? There's a kind of inward focusing of the art into the Christian community. Now, there's nothing wrong with writing poetry or other art to serve the Christian community. I do it myself. My book of poems, Sounding the Seasons, is for the church, and I'm glad to serve my fellow Christians, and I know that those poems help people to express and to grow in their faith. But I also hold the hope, which is why I write other books, like my Singing Bowl collection, which is much more general poetry, that I might have a chance through my art to do for somebody else, even if it's just for one other person, what George MacDonald did for C.S. Lewis when he was a 16-year-old atheist, getting on that train and reading Fantastes and feeling this bright, luminous cloud. And he says he passed a frontier. His imagination was baptized by reading George MacDonald, who he didn't even know was a Christian, in a book which is not overtly a Christian at all, although it's a fantasy which is just resonant with Christian truth. Now, I want to write, right now I'm working on a long poetic renditioning, I hope, beautiful retelling of all the King Arthur stories. And I want to do, but I'm restoring the faith and the symbols of the faith, you know, where they've been excised by Hollywood. And I'm trying to write something I think that I hope lots of teenagers will love and read. And before they know it, they've begun to glimpse a Christian worldview. They've begun to imagine before they can believe something of what this beautiful sacramental world would look like if we felt it was drenched with God's love and meaning and purpose and wasn't just a mere concatenation of atoms in the void. You know, I'm trying to do that. And I think Christians should encourage their artists to be outward facing and make art for the whole world and not just decorative arts for the church. And I think, so that's the first thing. But the second thing, which is really exciting, I think, is that some of the greatest artists who are not Christian, when you get to talk to them personally and get them to just come out a little bit about what they think they're doing, it's amazing how close they are. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was once invited to preach what's called the Varnishing Sermon, which is a strange English tradition in London, but before the exhibition of the Royal Academy every year in the summer. Unbelievably, all these atheist or shock outrage artists, the kind that, you know, all troop along, meek as lambs, to St. James's Piccadilly and here, because we've done it for 200 years. So like, why wouldn't we do it again, you know? And they get to hear a sermon. And I preached this sermon once, and I talked about exposure and the vulnerability of exposure, because they were all about to go and unveil their art that was hanging for all to see, and in which they'd put something of their heart and soul and who they are. And they knew not what gaze, hostile or mocking, but something gave them the courage to do it. Something made them feel it was worthwhile to have it hang there for a while. And then I just gently turned that to the end, to the cross. I talked about God as the divine artist and this greatest thing he's ever done, everything bodied forth in his beautiful son. And his son, just like one of these pictures, is nailed up and just hangs there. And he, the father, in the son, and the son in the father, is utterly exposed and defenseless. And yet in that exposed defenseless is offering the world a radical reappraisal of everything it does. And that's the very thing these artists, and 2 or 3 of these artists came up to me and said, you know, I've never thought of it like that. I always thought this Christianity was this dumb religion from the childhood of mankind. But I know what that's like. It makes me think about Jesus in a completely new way, because it speaks into the thing I know. Now, that kind of thing can happen all the time. And there's amazing, you know, it's amazing how all kinds of people you wouldn't think are a lot closer to Christianity than you think they are. If only there was somebody who loved and appreciated what they did and spoke to them from within that language.